Well, let's talk about some stuff here. AI, artificial intelligence, generating Magic the Gathering cards, artwork, all this stuff in the world. There's even worlds out in VR chat where you go into an AI sort of generative situation here where they do some art stuff. So we have like an artificial nature world. It's quite a unique world in that sense. You go through all these tunnels and you get to see all these different and neat effects that they create. Like this one, you go down through the tube. Now, when it comes down to AI, artificial intelligence, honestly, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of ethical questions that get raised with this stuff. You try and figure these things out, but at the same time, you sit there and you kind of get lost in some of it, some of the more nuanced stuff. When it comes to like copyright and how laws work with artificial intelligence and the way generative is, AI, when it comes to artwork, isn't necessarily you're not necessarily able to copyright it. So places like Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, I know this has been a contentious thing with a lot of their situation, with a lot of their artwork, especially in some of the recent Dungeons and Dragons books, some of the ads that they've done for Magic the Gathering cards. There's a lot of things like that. Geez, let's take a swim in a hazardous water of waste. Uh, but in some cases, this is just one of those situations where you go through a world that's supposedly AI generated, or I don't understand the whole detail of this world. Ooh, this one's pretty. So I'm guessing the background to this was made by AI, right? You look around and you see how beautiful things get. But the problem with AI, you have to use models and you have to use training to get to something like this where it generates an AI image, right? Now, if you followed one of the better stories out there, honestly, why I follow some of the lore with Five Nights at Freddy's is because the mimic is like an artificial intelligence. They've put all this stuff into it as the main antagonist for this scenario, or for the Five Nights at Freddy's series at this point. That he's the big baddie. If you don't know much about Five Nights at Freddy's, it's not a big deal. It's pretty much an artificial intelligence that takes on the actual killer's version of himself in a robot form, right? And this is what artificial intelligence has really done to a lot of things out in the world, is it takes whatever you put into it, and then what you get out of it is what happens later on. And it's the big question there is, where or what do you get out of it? Do you get something that's original, or do you get something that's been trained, or do you get something that is lifeless? And if this is artificial intelligence for an AI image, it's absolutely insane to think that something like this was generated. But it's also been brought up from many other different artists. There's currently a lawsuit right now for Midjourney. They're one of the higher ranked versions of an artificial intelligence model, or generative AI artwork that you get out of it. But what happened here, when in one of the renditions of Midjourney, they used thousands of pieces from Magic the Gathering and put it through Midjourney to try and create generative AI artwork. The problem with that was no one was asked. No one, they didn't come forward and say, hey, listen, we're going to do all these artists and try and put that up. Now, that doesn't mean that the contracts that they signed didn't already cover this. And that would be the key sticking point on this part, is if that stuff was actually made in their contract, which I highly doubt it, because these are older version of artists. It would have been long before that scenario, right? And the people that created Midjourney simply would have just scanned a bunch of cards that would have been online and said, here's the database from the Gatherer, which is where you can look up Magic the Gathering cards. Here's the database. Now produce something based off this artist, or produce something based off this type of card, right? Create an elf token for me. Create a boar. That's the things that has come down. And A lot of people say, okay, well, AI is supposed to ease what we're doing in our lives. It's supposed to make things easier and it's supposed to do that type of thing, but it makes it soulless. And because it's soulless, there's no work that goes behind it. Yes, any good artist will sit there and they will learn from another artist. That's how you learn. That's how you practice your skills. But it gets to a point where you actually gather your own style. And once you have your own style, then you move on to that. You can be inspired by many other people. But at the end of the day, it's the fact that you're human, or in this case, you're furry, and you find something more from it. Now, when it comes to generative AI, where do I stand? Honestly, I think it's a good tool. I think it's a good brainstorming tool in that sense, where you can sit there and get ideas. But do you market it as your own? Never. You don't market it as your own. You try not to. It's cool to have some images and have those images and go, hey, cool, I can use this as like something that's fun, but you can't really hold on to it, right? If someone picks it up and moves on with it, that's what happens, right? It's kind of like flash art when it comes to tattoos, right? If you get a tattoo and you flip through the book and there's these cute little things that you can get, like a heart or a paw print, that type of thing, and you get it out of what's called flash art. They're very simple and simplistic styles that you can get done, but then does it create a personalized version of it? And that has been the biggest difference here. That's why I really do like what I'm doing here, because I've gotten a lot of personalized pieces of art for myself, all the new emojis that you see over on Twitch. It's also my Discord. All of those done by an amazing artist, and I am more than happy to show those off. When it comes to AI generated, like I said, it's good to get a frame of reference, and that's it, right? Branding creates a different scenario out of it. It is fun. And honestly, I'm always trying to replace the little bit of AI stuff that I've seen or have used. I have used a couple things by that, but I try to move on from that. I try to get something more and something better that is drawn. And that's where the difference is with it. Now, there's a lot of people out there that'll say, "Oh, if you use AI art, you're evil and you're unethical and all this other stuff." It's the technology that we're growing up with at this point, right? It's like when the TV was invented, they called it the idiot box. They call it the brain drain. They said you're going to have a zombie-like state. And now we have things like TikTok, which is shorter version of the same sort of idea as like the TV. Yes, it's something you can go. Yes, they call it brain rot, but they called the TV, the invention of the TV, the same thing when it was first made. It's just another medium that you can use at this point. Now, it's gone back and forth. I think the laws kind of need to be rewritten when it comes to artificial intelligence, when it comes to the ethical standards of it. It's a very unique scenario. And now we're living within that scenario. AI art. In all honesty, if you use it, you use it. If you don't, you don't. I don't really have any qualms not using it. Like I said, I think it's a good tool in that sense to get an idea and to get inspiration from. But I would rather have an actual hand-drawn or an actual digitally artist version of a lot of drawings personally, because it has meaning behind it. When it comes to AI art, there's no meaning behind it. For me, it's just you use it and you move on with it. That's about all it is. I don't have any real personal meaning behind it. Where, like I said, hand-drawn stuff, you get a lot more from it. You have a sense, a purpose behind it. Christ. Some days you just got to sit there and you got to vent. This was something that was sparked in my live stream, was a lot of people talking about artificial intelligence, how Wizards of the Coast with new secret layers, how they're possibly going that route, how there's AI leaks going on out there. What is this card going to look like? Okay, let's go to an AI engine and put in the data, and this is what it comes out with. That's the scenario that we're getting here. It's the AI situation is like you're brainstorming with a computer, and the computer spits something back out at you. Look at ChatGPT. Look at Gronk. I think it's Gronk on Twitter. There's so many different engines out there that give you better ideas on what you can do at the speed of light at that point, or the speed of processing power. It spits something out back to you very, very quickly, and it kind of creates that shortcut. The problem with that, when you shortcut, now you don't know where you're going to lie. And sometimes those shortcuts lead to short ends, and it just leads to disaster in the long run. If you can sit there and have other people that you can communicate with and brainstorm that way, sometimes it's a lot better. But when it comes to AI, somewhere, it's trying to create technology that's better in that sense. But it can, like in the Five Nights at Freddy's scenario, create a very evil version of itself. Anyway, I am your proud Canadian Phoenix, Cindershadow. I'm going to sign off here. Have yourselves a great day. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you again very soon.